Ready, Mike?
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Special meeting today, Thursday, May 19th, 7 p.m. Pledge allegiance, please stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Brescher.
Here.
Councilmember Coyle.
Here.
Councilmember Harris. Here. Councilmember Patel.
Here.
Councilmember Patil.
Here.
Councilmember Pointer.
Present.
Councilmembership Freeman.
Here. Adequate notice?
Adequate notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meeting Act was provided by special notice sent to the Home News Tribune on May 1st, 2022, and posted main lobby municipal complex on that same date.
This is the 2022 calendar year municipal budget presentation by our Mayor Sam Joshi. Good evening, Mayor. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Council members, residents, and those of you joining us via live stream. I'm 4.5 months into my tenure as your mayor, and my administration has hit the ground sprinting. We aim to improve the quality of life for township residents of every age in every corner of our town. Just as you may be experiencing with your pocketbook or bank account, our budget has faced its challenges. Inflation is running rampant. Our local governments feel the strain just as much as private corporations or your household budget. Everything from the tires we need in our police cars to the paper we need to print out birth certificates have faced supply chain issues and rising prices. However, despite these challenges, I'm proud of the budget we have put together. It prioritizes our residents and includes numerous projects that will make Edison a better place to live. I want to thank our business administrator, Sonia, and our finance director, Ken Roberts, and his team, and our policy and communications coordinator, Cassidy Grom, for putting this presentation together, which will be available on our website in the coming days. I would also like to say thank you to the directors of each department who spent hours staring at spreadsheets, making necessary cuts, and painstakingly making sure their budgets reflected the real needs of Edison. Finally, I would like to thank the council. We appreciate all you do for our community. And I'm excited for what this year holds, and I'm excited for the way that we are moving forward. So let's get right into it. I will go over the presentation, and I'll answer any questions that you may have afterwards, if that's okay.
Yes.
So the objective of the budget goal for this year was to create tangible improvements throughout Edison that all residents can utilize and make a lasting impact on their quality of life. As I said earlier in my opening statement, what we did was we took an aerial view of Edison, and we wanted to ensure that every age demographic, as well as every corner of Edison Township, was somehow going to receive the benefits of this budget, and that is what we're going to show today. This includes our priorities, which are capital improvement projects separate from updating our recreational facilities, where there's a huge focus that we are making on this year, our long-term economic growth, as well as efficient operations and communications. This primarily is our day-to-day operations and what we're doing within Town Hall, and I'll break each of these down. So getting right into the capital improvements projects. First, the very exciting splash park at Lake Papiani. This is very exciting. Every child that I've spoken to about this, or every classroom that I have been to, there is always at least a handful of students that are excited about this project. The center, as I said during my first speech, the state of the township, the centerpiece is going to be the Edison Light Tower replica, along with different cultural, and different significant items around the Edison Light Tower. And it's going to be a really fun spot right here in Papiani Park. Next, we have our Swales Park upgrade, which is our community garden. And this construction is actually in progress. If you've been to the site and location, it looks wonderful. We are anticipating this site being completed by the end of next month, hoping for it to be done earlier, but it will be done by the end of next month. And there's going to boast 38 beds, one of which is going to be a bed that is meant for the food pantry and Hands of Hope. There's also going to be improvements of walking paths, new sand volleyball courts, and trees along the walking path as well. For capital improvements projects continued, and again, the objective was to go through every age demographic. So obviously the senior center is the expansion of the Toth Health Center. We found that there was extra room there on that location, and it happened to be geographically perfect in terms of the seniors that we have. Seniors make up about 15% of Edison Township, and the largest percentage happens to live around that circumference. That's the reason why we chose that location. And it's going to be slightly more than a 2,000 square foot expansion, and there's going to be on-the-spot healthcare. In addition to these capital improvement projects, we also have updating our recreational facilities. And what we have learned post-pandemic, and even during the pandemic, was that there is a huge demand for recreational space, for outdoor space, for making sure that people have a place to enjoy themselves outdoors while playing sports. And that's what we did. We have in this budget included 13 new or updated tennis courts, 5 basketball courts, 2 sand volleyball courts, 2 pickleball courts, at least 1 cricket pitch, and 2 turf fields. Most of these projects are actually underway right now. Most of the improvements are underway. With the approval of this budget, we will be able to see them completed. Next, we have the very exciting new recreational center. This is going to be located right off of Central Avenue, adjacent to Jets Field. And we chose this location, one, because it continues the theme of what we had said during my State of the Township, which is to make sure that Lake Papiani and coming to Town Hall ends up becoming the crown jewel of Edison Township. Also because of its proximity, and also because of its size. The Edison Jets turf field was also authorized just now by the council, and it's going to be inside of it is going to be a multi-purpose indoor recreational facility, primarily for cheerleading. And the reason why we did that was because when we went around to various groups and organizations, we found that there was, of all the different leagues and sports, the one that does not have any home, not even a makeshift home, happened to be cheerleading. Every single other sport has some sort of a ground to at least play on properly. Cheerleaders did not. We saw this and we wanted to act on it very quickly. Wrestling will also be a part of this, 2 basketball courts. It will also have a rooftop viewing deck, which I think is necessary for the future. I think it's pretty neat. I think everyone would be able to appreciate a rooftop viewing deck right over the Jets field. And what's exciting about this is not only is it going to bring in significant revenue for the respective leagues, but what it's also going to do is increase membership for each of these respective leagues. And that's really what's exciting, because we're making this investment directly for the youth of the town. And I can't express enough how important it is to make sure we get this underway. This is going to work parallel to all the other authorizations that this council will be making, and we hope to have this completed by spring of next year. We hope to break ground on it. We're actually going to hold off on breaking ground on it because we want to allow this season to complete. And we've spoken to the league parents about this as well. So moving on to long-term economic growth and beautification, one of the things that we noticed, and I'm very sympathetic to this because I know what it's like to be in your position as council members, and I know what it's like when a resident comes up to the council chambers and complains or genuinely inquires with concerns about blighted properties that have been condemned for years and we have not acted on them. And we wanted to make sure that we completely enforce our laws in every single department. So all of our inspectors, whether it be in fire, code, in health department, all of our inspectors have been instructed that they should be 100% enforcing the law wherever they see. And we have also identified significant areas that are in need of blight cleanup, to say the least. One of these areas happens to be Route 27, where we have asked our state assembly members and state senators for an increased amount of funding to help beautify this. I look at Route 27 right now, and I've said it before in my State of the Township, Route 27, as of right now, looks horrible. It is absolutely unacceptable, and we as a governing body need to do better to improve the state of not just Route 27, but other main corridors such as Oak Tree Road, Woodbridge Avenue, Route 1, and Amboy Avenue as well. These are our main roads. We have to focus on them. So, along with this code enforcement, we have identified the code areas that we needed to fix, and that is what we have done. A lot of the legal work that began in January, as soon as this administration got here, we identified more than 100 properties throughout Edison Township that were absolutely qualifying as blight. And the legal actions that we took in January are now gaining traction in court, and we are now getting the green lights and the approvals right now to move on these properties. So you are starting to see these blighted properties finally coming down, and we anticipate so many more coming down. Along with that, obviously, if you look at the right picture, it's actually the before and after. Those were 3 homes right on Oak Tree Road. We also had an area on Route 27 that we took down. It looked awful. It was completely unacceptable. It takes time, but we are progressing. We are moving this town forward, and we are cleaning up areas that needed to be cleaned up. I look forward to working with the landowners on the next phase of this to making sure that it is in line. The future of this economic growth is also in line with our master plan. That brings me to our master plan. Master plan was one of the promises that we made last year, and we wanted to ensure that the subcommittee behind it is underway. They've already met. We put together the subcommittee. It is a very eclectic group, to say the least, and we wanted to make sure that we review every single parcel of land in Edison and make it so that it directly sees and oversees the progress that we've made so far, what we currently have on those parcels of land, and how we can move Edison forward for the next 20 to 30 years. And we also want to make sure that this is in line with the county and state visions as well. And it's important to do so. So that is what the master plan subcommittee is doing. We have an aggressive timeline to adopt it in less than a year. It says 18 months there, but it's actually less than a year. The infrastructure improvements also are key. We're paving countless roads, 72 to be exact as of now, and we look forward to growing just that. Other long-term economic growth opportunities. One thing that we're doing in this administration, or with this administration and with this council's help, is we're taking a lot of the negative things that you've previously heard around town, and we're making them positive things that we can look forward to. We're being very, very proactive about this. The Silver Lake purchase that Silver Lake Glendale Ave purchase is just one example. If you look back, 1 year ago, this entire section of town, I would say about 1/3 of the township was aware that there was potentially a warehouse that would have devastated that entire neighborhood. It was a terrible location for it, and oversight was a reason why it even got to that point. But we've gotten to the point where, thankfully, there's not going to be any warehouse anymore. But what we did was we held our first town hall, and we invited everyone in that neighborhood. The town hall was well attended by the residents of that neighborhood. There were several dozens of people in attendance. And what we're doing now with this property is we're actually taking into account every idea that was brought up in that town hall. And our team is currently working on putting numbers on every single figure. So everything from open space, leaving the entire area open space, to a full build out. What those extremes would be, along with different areas, different ideas that other people had as well. We're going to put projected numbers and costs on all of them, and also cite the pros and cons. And then we're going to go back to the community, that specific community where they're impacted, and we're going to allow the people to decide what should be the future of this property. It happens to be on Riverfront, and I think that's what was incredibly exciting at that town hall. And I've spoken to the residents. I've made my rounds there. I've knocked on doors there. I can tell you right now that that neighborhood is excited for the future, and they're excited about everything that this administration is doing, as well as what the council had approved to. So I thank you for that. Moving on to efficient communications and operations. I can't express enough how important it is to this administration that not only are we looking at the future of Edison with these recreational projects, with these capital improvements, but we also need to make sure our daily operations right here in Town Hall are running efficiently. So in the last 4.5 months, while we have not been able to make every change that we wanted to, or make every improvement that we wanted to, we are making progress every single day in every single department, one at a time. And these are just some of the highlights of where your tax dollars are going. Everything from trash pickup to utilities, from sewer and water, recycling collections, our snow and plowing and salting services that we had, which were excellent this year during the winter storms. I assure you, we were one of the best cleaned and plowed areas in central New Jersey. And everything from animal control, and the shelter services, after school care for students. These are just some of the things that are in this budget. And of course, your public safety, police, fire, and EMS. Next, we wanted to make sure with my administration that we are communicating directly to the public. This is for transparency and this is for access. And we want to make sure that these conversations are productive. I've made it very clear that individuals or groups or entities or businesses that come with the intention of having productive and constructive conversations, doors are open, wide open. Come on in, we want to hear what you have to say. And that also means that we're going to show what we are doing in town. And the illuminator that was sent out was just one example of that. We've received countless responses to the illuminator, and it was very well received. We wanted to show what we're doing in Town Hall. Oftentimes, people may perceive government officials or elected officials as unrelatable. We wanted to show directly exactly what we're doing and how it directly impacts your quality of life, and how everything that we're doing in Town Hall is for the betterment of the town overall. This is obviously just one snapshot of everything we're doing, but we've also taken Edison TV, former Edison TV, and converted it into Edison Media. And that is because we need to come with modern times. So the illuminator is just one print example. but we're also broadcasting everything on social media, Facebook, Instagram, soon TikTok. And the reason why we're doing that is because we want to be able to target what our messaging is for all of us and how all of our tax dollars are working in every single age demographic, in every single demographic that views or utilizes different social media. And that's also why we're live streaming this right now. Moving on to the timeline. I appreciate the council introducing on April 27th the budget. Here we are right now, and we hope to have it adopted by June 15th so that these projects can go underway. Moving on to some of the numbers, we're going to have a lot more numbers in the next few slides. I just want you to look at two numbers right now, the total revenues being $158 million, approximately $158 million, of which debt service, capital, and deferred charges are $13 million. Of that, the split is our municipal operation. So for everything that you saw on the previous slide, costs about $144 million. Next, we have our other numbers of this. I would ask you to look at the amount to be raised by taxation, which is the $1.97 million. That is what we are raising in this budget, and we've broken down how it's going to be spent as well. So non-property tax revenues.
Yeah, if I can just interrupt you 1 minute. If you can go back to the previous slide, one number that is also very important, the municipal tax rate increase, 1.87%, that's the lowest since 2013.
Yes. Thank you for that. So we have our non-property tax revenues right here, and these slides are going to be available online in the coming days. There are also a couple of them should be available right here for viewing. The number that I want to highlight right now is actually the pilot number, the 1.97 million in pilot revenue that we generated. I think it's extremely important to recognize that that pilot money comes directly to Town Hall, and we should be utilizing more of that in the future, or making use of that in the future. Next, we have our appropriations. Again, this is a high-level pie chart, which the details of are posted online, and you're also more than welcome to ask questions about it. Public safety makes up 38.17% of this. The simple reason for that is because compared to every other department, public safety operates 24 hours. Every other department may operate 8 hours a day, whereas public safety is 24 hours a day. That's why it's 3 times overall, more than every other department. And we also have state mandated minimums, and therefore we need to make sure that we maintain those minimums. But in addition to that, we have to remember that Edison was one of the safest places to live, and we don't take that for granted. It is because of our public safety, and it's important to remember that we have to continue funding our public safety and ensuring those, not only the minimums, but making sure that our police officers and firefighters also have a safe working place as well. So revenue changes. Again, we're getting more detailed, but the numbers that I really want you to look at right now are the total revenues from 2022 to 2021. It's an increase of about $7.56 million in increased revenues. And we're showing in this budget how it's going to be spent and where that actually came from. So with appropriation changes, the one number, this is pretty straightforward. However, what I would really like you to look at is the red number of debt service and the amount changed of 1.4 million. Our debt on a year-over-year basis has dropped by approximately 1.4 million. And that is because we refinanced our debt obligations last year. So we're seeing the benefits of that in this budget.
Mayor, one more time, sorry, if I may interrupt. Just going back to that other slide, on the debt service, when the township refinanced, interest rates were significantly lower. If we had to do that today, we'd be paying 70% more in interest expense.
Yes. Thank you for that, Ken. And that was one of the things that we did as a municipality, was take advantage of this. And that's actually the reason why we are moving on these capital improvement projects. We have locked in a very low interest rate. It is extremely low. It's you're talking less than 2% on long-term debt with our AA bond rating. That is incredible. And we're glad as a council we did that last year, but we're seeing the benefits of it right now. With our staffing, we have the difference between 2021 and 2022. I'd like to highlight a couple of numbers for you. Our full-time employees have increased by 14 as of now, but our part-time employees have actually decreased. Our employee staffing level is not where we want it to be. We are actively looking to recruit. We have job postings, and we want to be able to fulfill the needs of our departments. So if you know individuals that are qualified, please ask them to apply. We need to get our staffing levels up, not only to increase the morale of the township employees, but also to make sure that government is more efficient and, again, working for you. This is how we can make progress. I'm going to break down the average homeowner's taxes. The average property owner has an assessed value of $184,400. Again, this is the assessed value. This is not what a home is sold for, which is a completely separate number. And this is the assessed value is how we calculate what the taxes should be. So it's approximately $10,000. So when you get your average tax bill, or when the average homeowner gets a tax bill of the approximate $10,000, $2,559, just less than 25% of your total tax bill comes towards town hall and our operations. So all of these improvements that you see here right now, the $20 million in investments that we're making, not just this, but that includes our roads, our infrastructure, pipes, all of that, it is coming out of less than 25% of your total revenue or total tax bill, and 55.97% goes towards schools. So taxes comparatively between this year and last year, there's two numbers that I want you to focus on, or two line items. It's municipal and municipal open space tax. If you see the difference between 2022, 2021, in this budget, based off of the average home, you're looking at a difference of less than $37. All of this, the $20 million improvements, the difference of less than $37. The other number that I want you to look at, which is so very important, is municipal open space. This is something that was passed last year, and this is something that is extremely important because we have a unique situation in Edison Township where we are facing overdevelopment. We are facing, and in order to offset that, we have to have an open space fund that we can use to preserve more areas. Case in point, one, it's not just Silver Lake, but all the other areas that you see around town. We can better utilize our open space fund for these different types of things, as well as improving our recreational services. Having our open space fund also allows us to tap into county and state funds as well. It's essentially like a coupon. Think of it that way. It is extremely important for the residents of Edison to understand the importance of the open space fund. Breaking down the tax base valuation, the year 2022, this year, we are anticipating the highest tax base valuation, which sounds great, and it is, for now. However, I cannot express enough to you that, one, we should not be taking this number for granted, because this administration is not. We are anticipating tax appeals next year, and we are leaving in a buffer for that based off of this. So although we are at a good level right now, or the greatest level right now, we are not taking it for granted. Moving on to the COVID impact, as I said before in my opening, it's not just the staggering inflation, the unprecedented inflation that we have, and also supply chain issues that we have, but we've also, this administration also inherited a pandemic era crisis. With this administration, we walked into this. High inflation, supply chain management issues, as well as a pandemic level economic impact. Fortunately, we did receive $15.6 million in the American Rescue Plan. However, we are anticipating actually all of this. We are anticipating all of the $15.6 million to be used in revenue losses. Again, 100% of the 15.6 will be used towards revenue losses. We have until the next couple of years to make use of it. We won't know the tax appeal amounts until they go into court. Like I said, that's going to be something that's ongoing. So we need to keep this in reserve because we will need to use it. And finally, as I said before, despite inflation, I'll backtrack. I want the residents to know that for this administration and myself, I was extremely frustrated walking into this budget. I'm also a taxpayer in town. I'm also a resident in town, much like every single other person. And I want to make sure that the impact that we have, all of us elected officials and government officials, it should be reflective of Edison residents as well. What we are struggling and what we are going through. So it's extremely frustrating that we walked into inflation. It's extremely frustrating that we walked into supply chain issues and this pandemic era challenges. However, this budget has $20 million dedicated to capital improvements that will move our town forward. That is my presentation for tonight. I am excited to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mayor Joshi. Thank you, members of the public and our council, for taking the time to listen to this presentation. Certainly pleased with the time you put into it. We'll try to make this brief. I know that you're trying to get married this weekend and you have enough gray hair already. But if we can give you some more, we certainly will if we step on to that gear thing there. But council members from my left, any questions to the mayor?
Thank you, Council President. Just some general items. The surplus at the approximately $8 million, a lot of that is because of the figured tax appeals in the upcoming years that we're figuring. There was an increase. Last year was like 6.7, and now we're at 8.5, just call it for the sake of argument. Is that particularly because of the proposed or figured tax appeals in the future?
So I want to make sure I answer your question correctly. So just correct me or clarify me if I'm not. But we had the American Rescue Plan, the COVID bill that helped offset our revenue losses for the previous years. But we've also generated more revenue, as you saw, because our tax base grew. So that's the reason why we had a higher surplus previously, but we are tapping into that surplus right now. for this entire budget.
Maybe I should rephrase. Is there a ideal percentage that the township should be at from a surplus percentage?
Okay, so the question is essentially how do we know how much surplus we should have left over? And why not tap into all of it? And that is a terrific question. We actually look at all the exposure that we have to tax appeals moving forward in the next 3 years. We did a risk analysis on this. Kendra Roberts' team actually did a terrific job of looking at what type of risks we have coming up in the next 3 years. And that's how we projected this is how much of a surplus we would need to maintain right now, and versus what we can utilize for this budget. So obviously, it makes sense to, you don't want to just, municipalities should not just be sitting on $10 million of a surplus. We should be using it for the benefit of residents, if not giving it directly back to the residents. But we felt that the surplus that is currently maintained adequately would protect us moving forward the next 3 years.
I appreciate that. One item that I saw that was an increase compared to prior appropriations, however, compared to last year's expense, is actually fairly about the same with fuels and lubricants. Obviously, with the price of gas, figuring that that is going to be increased. Does the township have any game plan in regards to its vehicle fleets going forward for those types of capital improvements?
Yes. So we look at this ties back into our exposure to inflation. And I can't express enough, that is something that we are living with. This administration monitors every single day. Just to give you a number, last year you were looking at less than $3 of gas. Right now you're looking at more than $4.50. So we track these numbers in our expenses every single day, but we've adequately protected ourselves from various types of exposure such as that.
Okay. One other item, in regards to, I know in the past you mentioned like about the fire department and the overtime that was paid in that department specifically. What actions are being taken to help mitigate some of those figured overtime costs so that they're not as prevalent as years past?
So I'm chuckling because I think every year that I served on the council, I brought up fire overtime. And that was one thing that we, actually to this day, I bring it up to Sonia every single day. And what we wanted to do was make sure that we limit the amount of overtime in our fire department. And the way that we do that is actually by increasing our staff. And this year is a little bit more unique. We've had to, we were able to maintain that line item and not increase the salaries and wages, because this month, April, beginning April to May and June, we have a influx of retirees. There's more than a dozen people that have put in their retirement. They may be on the books until a few months afterwards, but they have put in their papers for retirement. So those higher salaries would actually be switching over to newer recruits and lower salaries. That's the reason why we did not need to increase that. But we're also going to be able to increase our manpower in the fire department as well.
I'm happy to hear about that. Does that tie into the public employment retirement aspect in terms of that increase because of the figured retirements? Like that number was 2.5
Yes.
million in the past.
The answer is yes.
Okay. That's it. I don't know if you want to address any of the department head aspects. I know that there are a couple of vacancies, but in review of the overall budget, I'm very happy because even most of the time we just see it in the sense of just salaries and other expenses. Even when we break it down into some of the breakdown items, for instance, the training and such, those types of appropriations I think are necessary and are going to be very beneficial for the town. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Patil.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Mayor Joshi. In fact, I'm very happy to see you address the question that last 6 years I was asking, what the taxpayers are getting for whether it's an increase or stable, what they're getting out of it. And thank you for putting those slides together. So this is the question that every single budget meeting I was asking, and thank you for addressing that. My first question is, I do see the salaries and wages that have gone up 3.8%. Again, no question, the inflation is there. There are contractual obligations. We all know that, this number goes up. But my question is very specific to the employees who are at the bottom tier. We have the employees who are getting paid less than $25,000 or $27,000 a year. And in one of the budget meeting, I did mention that if you really want to attract the good people, or if you really want to motivate the people to work in the town hall, you need to pay them what the market is paying. Again, I'm not demanding to pay them $50,000, but at least to be in proportion. So my question is, have you put any thought together, or this number includes any of that?
Yes. So, Councilman, I appreciate your question because, and I'm going to answer in a few different ways. And I'll give you an example. One of my first couple weeks in office, as I'm going through every email that I get, I see an approval, a request approval for a job opening. Starting salary was high, almost $29,000. I did the math. I'm like, my gosh, that's very close to minimum wage. And we have to come to terms with the reality that Edison Township employees are not being paid as they should be compared to other municipalities and other government employees. It is extremely important that we work to address this. However, we also have to strike a balance with what is fair for taxpayers and also what is fair to the employees, and how we find the talent. So that is what we plan to do this year. We have 11 negotiations with unions that we're going to do this year. And we have, all of these are in staggered groups and increments, and we have to strike that balance of what is fair. But that's something that we're actively looking at. I've attended numerous mayors' conferences, whether it be US mayors or New Jersey mayors' conferences, and this is something that has come up in every single conversation, where how do we address, one, inflation, but two, minimum wage increases, especially in New Jersey with our cap. Because we have a cap, we can only increase by so much. So we have to strike that balance, and that's something that we look forward to doing this coming year during our negotiations.
Happy to hear that. Hopefully, if in next 1 or 2 years, if we can normalize their salaries, will tremendously help you attract the good talent. Mayor, my second question is, we all know that we like the pilot projects in Edison Township, and I know that under your leadership, you have vouched that you will do a lot of redevelopment, the right redevelopment, and that's why we have the master plan study underway. My question is, are you open to hire a redevelopment director, which I'm asking last several years, because we need someone who is dedicated to do this work. This cannot happen, in pockets that we have seen. Okay, let's do this project, let's do that project. Someone has to holistically approach the business people, approach the industrialist, and say, what can be done as a pilot project. That's going to help the school, that's going to help the town, and we have many challenges in terms of, we'll have those challenges when we get into the tax appeals. So earlier we do those pilots, earlier we do those initiatives will be helpful for the taxpayers.
So the answer to your question is my administration is not actively immediately looking to fill such a role. However, that is economic development and growth, soliciting businesses that we can be proud of, is something that we are doing on a daily basis. We have a diverse and eclectic pool of people in the administration, and we're looking at these types of businesses that we can bring in for redevelopment purposes. It also helps, I think, that all of us in the administration are full-time, so we're spending a lot of time looking at areas in need of redevelopment.
Thank you, Mayor, and hopefully in next several council meetings, I'm looking forward to see some pilot projects on the agenda. Mayor, my next question is, you address this directly and indirectly in terms of the anticipated tax appeals. We know that we went through the difficult time. We had similar challenges in sometime 2008, 2009, when the economy was down. And I'm pretty sure last couple of years were very difficult to all the businesses. So we know that there will be, huge tax appeal coming on the way, whether it comes this year, next year, or following year. But I know that you answered that saying, yes, the analysis has been done and we know the impact. Is there a way that you can share that study with the council?
Yeah, so Kendra Roberts' team we can sit down and get into the details of what we did. And again, we looked at all the exposures based off of different industries. It's important to remember that commercial revenue, commercial tax base is based off of their revenues. It's not just the assessed values, or not assessed values. And so we have exposure, particularly Menlo Park Mall. We are expecting a significant tax appeal coming from them. But in this budget, as well as with our forward outlook of looking at the American Rescue Plan and how we're spacing out those funds, we've adequately protected ourselves as much as we believe we could have.
Thank you. Mayor, you mentioned the new recreation center. It's again great that we hear that next to the Jets, you'll have the indoor facility. Do we know the approximate square footage of?
I think it was 20,000 square feet, or 20, maybe a little bit more than that.
Okay, that's good enough. Yeah. And do we know we're going to bond anything for that, or it's already bonded?
So one of the things that we also did was we looked into previous authorizations. And although authorizations have been made previously, they were never tapped into or utilized. Right. Zero funds have been allocated towards them. And that is what we are doing right now. So this budget factors in the 5% down payment that we're making for all of these projects.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And my last question is, you stated that there are close to $20 million projects for this year. I'm assuming, all of them are bonded and not really coming hard hit like from the budget, right? Do we know the rough payment towards that?
Yeah. So the answer to your question is the 5% bonding is all of these projects have the 5% bonding in this budget. However, there's one project with Swales Park that we're doing in-house that we are paying for. That's not a long-term bond.
Thank you. I think, the last I'm going to just scratch that. It's not really a question there. Again, it's commendable in 4 months, too many projects that's kicked off. Hopefully we keep this momentum. And whatever, I think the last year or a year before, anything that was approved or bonded, hopefully those projects will also come to the fruition. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for the presentation.
Thank you, Councilman Patil. Councilman Patel?
Mayor, very beautiful presentation. It was very easy to understand. Just wanted to continue the conversation that my council colleagues had regarding essentially overtime and the lack of a lot of vacancies in the teams. Do you know what are the options we have to decrease those vacancies? What is the plan? And what is, mainly what's the plan to decrease those vacancies?
So we want to be able to fill as many vacancies as we possibly can for so many reasons, because town hall needs to be run more efficiently. That being said, as in previous conversation with Councilman Patil, we also have to be mindful of where we are at contractually with our wages. So it's about attracting a greater talent pool and also ensuring that we're not running up overtime in certain departments such as fire and police, which we have in the past. Fire department right now, as I said, has more than a dozen firefighters or senior ranking firefighters that are retiring. And because of that, we plan to fill those with new firemen or firewomen. And we will, we'll have we won't have as much of an overtime as we currently had.
Okay, and are all these vacancies due to retirement, or a lot of it is maintaining our employees and the morale that's going on with it?
It's mostly at this point in time because of retirement. And part of the problem that we have is that we have to stagger the amount of people that we hire in a given year in different departments. So, for example, earlier this year, we hired 12 firemen. I'm using this one department for example. We hired 12, but that barely filled the gap. But actually, we still have a shortfall because now we have more than 12 leaving. So we have to now hire another amount that would bring us up to the level where we need to be. But similarly, 25 years ago, these people were hired in groups that are just mass exodus right now that we're faced with. So getting back to the other point is salaries and wages in Edison compared to neighboring municipalities, we are on the lower end. And that's something that over the course of the next few months in union negotiations, we'll be striking a balance between what is fair, having a good talent pool, and also what is right by taxpayers.
Thank you. I think everything else was answered. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Patel. Councilmember Harris?
Yes. First of all, Mayor, thank you. Excellent presentation, clear and concise, and and great graphics on here, so job well done. I also want to thank the public for being here to listen to this public who is here in person, the public who are live streaming. So important. My first question has to do with the total ratables. And I'm looking at what looks like a modest increase, a 0.96% modest increase in that. And can we talk about the source of these ratables, and secondly, what is the outlook for ratables coming from new businesses?
So I could go to another slide that's not as pretty, it just has a lot of numbers, but I'm going to pick the pretty slide. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because it's true. We've had an increase in ratables in the year 2022 compared to previous years. We're at our highest point right now. However, we can't take this for granted. We need to be mindful of what is considered, or what the majority of this town would consider to be overdevelopment. And that is a real issue that we are faced with. It's like every corner in town where there is land, we have risks of overdevelopment, and that's something that we need to prevent. But at the same time, we have to be mindful of generating revenues. So not only are we looking at increasing our tax base and our tax revenue, but what we're also doing is addressing all of our fees. And we did that at the last council meeting. For example, code, engineering, we've actually increased, the council did just at the last council meeting. We put forth we did an analysis between our neighboring municipalities, and we said that we're going to increase our revenues through our permitting processes. So developers are actually paying more now than previously. They're actually paying more now for permit costs than ever before. And that's something that we're going to make sure that we further moving forward, because making sure that if you're a developer and you want to do business in town, great, but at the same time you're going to have to pay your share of fees. And so we're not only looking at a tax revenue generation and rateable generation, but we're also looking at just increasing our fees in town. That alone should be able to pull up revenue significantly, that we won't know until the next year's budget.
With businesses that have been shuttered, especially during COVID, has there been a recovery of new businesses going into those shuttered business spots?
So fortunately, Edison has a diverse pool of businesses. Our warehousing market, which is primarily in Raritan Center, was not impacted as much during the pandemic, it was actually booming. However, retail took a major hit. Retail, and like I said, the one tax appeal that we are anticipating the most between next year or the following, whenever they file in court, is going to be Menlo Park Mall. That is the single largest retail taxpayer in town.
Okay, all right. Regarding staffing, in the fact that we are down 38 part-time people, I don't know if this is related to Councilman Patel's question, but we're up 14 with full-time, but down 38, and I'm just wondering, is there any one particular area where the part-time has been depleted by 38 people?
So the answer is two. There's two primarily. That is first in crossing guards and second with public works. We have a shortage in crossing guards. We've actively, not just in this administration, but for several years now, we've had this issue where we have a shortage in crossing guards, and we are continuing to see that decline.
Okay. The crossing guards, that's going to be privatized, is it not?
So we are exploring all options. Nothing has been finalized. But what we want to make sure is that those current crossing guards that are, whether we choose to ramp up from a government standpoint or privatize, we want to make sure that those crossing guards are given first priority to keep their jobs.
Okay. Just some smaller questions. With regard to the Toth Health and Senior Center, with recreational areas, what kinds of recreational areas are we talking about?
So, as someone who had an internship when I was 14 years old in the Woodbridge Avenue Senior Center, I could tell you not as many seniors would play like lacrosse or football, but they will, what we consider to be recreational facilities in a senior center are very different. But in all seriousness, I've actually gone to the senior center a few different times, and I've directly asked the seniors what they wanted to see. And that's everything from, they want to have open space, whether it be for knitting, for bingo, for billiards. These are just some of the things that they've brought up to me. It's the same approach that we had with the Silver Lake Glendale conversation. We wanted to make sure that we directly hear from the seniors. This is an ongoing conversation as to what we're going to put there, but it's more than a couple thousand square feet. It's going to be over 2 floors, and they'll be able to decide what we put in there.
All right, is that time for, is that? Oh, okay, all right. One last question. With the rooftop viewing deck, can you just describe a little bit more about what's involved in that, what that will be doing?
I'll just pull it up. So, the idea behind this was not just having a facility that appropriately addresses the needs for right now, but also making sure that it looks futuristic and it is sustainable in the future. It's something that we can be proud of in the future. When we were actually there, I was with a number of parents, a few parents, and we were openly talking about what we would like to see. And that location happened to have a stand right now. So if you actually look at I don't think this has, oh, this does. All right, well, the laser does not work. The red box over there is actually my inspiration for the rooftop. I just figured that if residents can be on the bleachers, why not be on a rooftop and oversee the football games there? I want to make sure that this facility not just helps generate revenue for the leagues, but also ends up becoming an area where the students and youth are proud of. They should be able to look back. If you see the facility right now, I wish, I should have put in a before after of what it currently looks like. It's completely unacceptable. There's just no reason why in a town as large as we are, on the top left side, you'll see what it currently looks like. It is absolutely unacceptable to have this. We haven't had any work done in decades on this site. And this, because it's a multi-purpose, tailored heavily towards cheerleading, but it is still multi-purpose. We'll be able to be proud of this for years and years, decades to come. We'll be able to generate more revenue. Quite frankly, I want to make sure that this is not just the center of Town Hall or center of Edison, but this should be the epicenter of youth sports in New Jersey.
Thank you so much, and let me just take the opportunity to wish you and the upcoming, the soon-to-be Mrs. Mayor, the best wishes on your nuptials.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Brescher?
Okay. Let's see where I'll start here. You know what? I might as well start with the people in the back of the room that I see. I know we talked about a lot of this stuff here, right? And we have money for this allocated in the bond that we have. But in the budget here, it shows that we're only going to use a tiny percentage of it, maybe like 5% this year, which would mean then that we don't have the funding because we're putting the funding off until another year. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
I could explain it.
Well,
So,
let me just ask
Okay,
a question.
sure.
If you could just turn to sheet 40B. Because this is our bond with all that money.
Councilman Brusher, are you referring to the user-friendly budget?
This one.
Okay, that's the user-friendly budget we report to the state.
Yeah. The public has this too, right?
It's online, yes.
Yes, that's why I'll try and use this for most of my questions. When I look at this, and I look all the way to the right, there's a line 6. It says to be funded in future years, and that's basically 14.25 million of the 15 million. Like, shouldn't we appropriate some of this into this year's? I'm asking the question. Or we plan on building these out next year is the question.
So we are putting in, let me give you the analogy. It's essentially like having credit cards. We had, from previous years, we had open credit cards. Consider them open authorizations. So we had lines of credit, but we never drew on them. What we're doing right now is, although the money was bonded in the past, we never actually put a down payment on to tap into those funds and make use of them. So that's what we're doing right now. We're using 5% because that is the minimum amount, and you do that in finance, it only makes sense to do that. Oh, you want to bond things out for the useful life. You're not going to put 100% of a payment or even 20% of a payment if you can only put in 5% and then bond it out over the course of 20 years. That's just how.
I understand that, but if we approve this budget, then we're only approving the 5%. So we're only approving, like, there is no money for that building, and there is no money for a turf field. Where does that money come from? Because over here, it would be in this other line item 6, which says to be funded for future years. And I'm not disagreeing. If your intention is, then some of those funds should just be allocated over into 5B, capital improvement funds, so that this way you could spend them this year as opposed to next.
No, because every year we're going to continue making payments on that bond.
Okay, but right now, if you want to do these projects, where are you going to get the money from? Because here in line 6 on sheet 40B, it says to be funded in future years. So you're basically saying you're not going to use these funds now. Ken?
Yeah, so typically with capital projects like this, Councilman, we begin to finance them as the projects are either built or the equipment is purchased.
Correct.
Yeah, so the 5% down payment, as the mayor correctly pointed out, is a requirement by state law. We have to at least appropriate 5% in the budget.
Well,
and that's
I
referenced
get
inside
that.
the budget. Yeah, so we'll begin a borrowing program with short-term notes and move to permanent financing probably in 3 to 5 years on these projects. And so it's until we start spending the money, we won't begin to borrow against it. So some of the funds for some of the projects, like the paving projects, even though the money may be authorized once you do a bond ordinance for it, the work may not start till later this year or next year.
Right, so you could just take paving, right? That's $6 million. We should be starting that, I don't know, next week, right? We start that in the spring and we continue that until like November. So your bills will be in before the end of December, but you're allocating $316,000, not the $6 million. Wouldn't it be beneficial, let's say, to carry that line item over into your budget so you can use it? Or what you're going to tell me, or that what you're going to do is you're going to do like a temporary bond, and then you're going to roll this all over into this one? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
So I understand what you're asking. I just want to give another analogy. If it doesn't make sense, feel free to clarify and ask another question. Another equivalent apart from credit card would be like a home equity line of credit. You have a line of credit, there's an existing interest rate on it, but until you draw on that line, for example, a roof repair, then you can start using that money. We're putting in the 5% minimum in this budget. You would not pay 6 or 7%. We would only pay for the useful life. So as that project goes underway, so for example, pipes and making a library, for example, certain brick and mortar items can be bonded over the course of 40 years. And certain things like carpet can only be bonded for 5 years. It's just the useful life. So we only pay the 5% because it's a municipal bond, and over the course of that bond itself, we continue funding it. Does that make more sense?
Well, yes, I mean, when you talk about financing, but not the columns that it's in for where it's appropriated here in our budget. That's where my question is I'm not disputing we're going to spend it. I'm not disputing when we're going to spend it. I'm just disputing that what you're telling me in this budget is you're not going to use it this year, because you have it in line item 6, which says to be funded in future years, which means you are not going to use this money this year. That's what that line says.
Well, one of the things that, just to clarify for you, Councilman, is that what we strive to do from a high level down is maintain somewhat of a balanced equilibrium in our debt management and our debt service.
Let me ask
That's the end result.
Let me just ask a simpler question. Let's say we do all these projects and we have all the approvals for them, right? And we give out the contracts next week, right? Which means it's all going to be done before November. Can you take this money out of this line item here and use it this year to pay everybody? Or would you have needed to have taken this money and put it into capital improvement fund?
No, that's not how it works. We're only spending 5% because that is the only amount that is needed to spend. What we're doing in future years is just there for a reference.
Okay. I understand finance pretty well, and I don't think you're explaining this one correctly. I think the line item should be moved over so that you could use the funds. But let me go on to a simpler question. I talked at the last council meeting, we increased our fees, right? And I said that, can we take some of those fees and put them into our number? And I was told that we have to use the same number that we received last year in those fees, like in the building department, right? That we had to use the number that we took in last year for this year's number. And I guess surplus shifts, trying to find what number on that one is. Mick. Was our revenue, we're increasing surplus. Public Works is going up.
Council President?
Yes, Councilman Patel.
Yeah.
You mind if he jumps in, Councilman Brecher? He wants
No,
to jump
I'm
in.
trying to find
ahead.
the
Hey,
page.
Councilman
Councilman
Brescher, I just wanted to, clarify the first point that you brought in. Logistically, when we bond the money, normally it's a 5% is the down payment. But this is like, I'm securing that commitment of say 20 million, 15 million, whatever that amount is. But your question is to some extent valid, but not necessary that we'll end up spending. Again, this all depends on the plan, as Mayor explained. Some of those activities might go for 20 years, maybe 10 years, or might be 5 years. And as those activities are completed or that work is performed, that schedule is known, the payment schedule is known, and based on that, the budget allocation will happen. So in short, the bond is approved. And the reason the bond is secured because we paid the minimum required 5% down payment, and when we are going to perform that work, that's where we'll draw. So every budget, you will see the line item reflecting this is what we need to pay towards the debt obligations or towards the bond obligations. Hopefully I clear that up.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I was going back, I can't find the page, but for our code, we carried the number that we took in from code last year, right? Because we had to keep that. Even though we raised the fees so that number could increase this year. We just raised those fees, I guess, the other day.
Yes. So I just want to be able to answer your question. So what is your question?
Okay, so I was told at the meeting that we couldn't raise that number because we only received so much money last year, so that's the money you need to show in the budget for this year. If you had for your anticipated revenue this year, you're using the number that you received last year. That's what I was told at the last meeting.
That is correct, and that is because of a state statute.
Right, and then I called the state, and the state said that you can, in fact, change that, and you can list it on sheet 10. So you just need to show the calculations of how many permits you had last year with your new rate, which then means your revenue would be higher. And if your revenue is higher, and you're showing that, because that's probably what you're actually going to receive this year, that would be a realistic number, the increase to the taxpayers could be less. It's an opportunity for you to reduce the taxes on the taxpayers. And if you don't use it for that purpose this year, it's just going to show up as a surplus that you'll end up for next year. Unless that's what the idea is, to have the surplus for next year. I don't know.
So we're always looking to generate more revenue in our budget. And that is something that is a moving target. However, I did anticipate this question. I actually have here the sheet. It's 40A:4-24 of the state statute that clearly and explicitly states that you cannot do that.
Okay, you can tell, okay, the
I'll
BA
also,
told me we couldn't
I have a
do it.
second copy of the sheet here.
Listen, I understand. I talked to the guy, Mr. Caruso, down at the state today. He's the one that does the budget that you can just speak to. And he said most definitely it can be included in section 10. So what I'm doing is, I understand you have something written in front of you. If you're actually interested in, you can call him. He's down at the state, and he said you definitely can. I took the time to track him down and find him, but it is true. I don't know what you have in front of you, but this is what I was told by the state. And this is the guy that's the one that's there that's going to be approving whatever you're sending down to him. So, Ken might know him, I don't know.
And I appreciate the work and time that you've put in. We have no problem looking into it further, but I just wanted to restate to you that we also looked at that. I have a printout of the law itself.
Madam Clerk, would you make sure the minutes reflect Mr. Brescher's statement? Can we move forward on the next item?
Next item, clean community grant money. I noticed that was kind of a staple. It was paying for a couple of our employees to clean up our parks. We don't have that incorporated. Did we apply for that, or we're not applying for that? Can we apply for it and have it added?
So we're applying for a number of grants every year. We have a vendor, Millennium Strategies, that looks towards the larger ones to fund, and we have about 178,000 in that fund right now, but we have not yet applied for that or we have not yet received it for this year.
Yeah, I just noticed we've had it every year, and it's not listed this year.
That's correct. It didn't come in by time the budget was introduced, the award notification. So typically what happens subsequent to the adoption of the budget, we get grants constantly. We'll do what's called a budget amendment, and then that'll be
You'll put that in there.
incorporated in the 2022 budget.
That's fine, thank you. I'm gonna do the elephant in the room one now. I noticed that the mayor, the administration, and the council's budget has went up by like 1.3 million, which is almost like our tax increase that we have. And I do recognize, and I've told you that personally, that I believe that the administration's department or your department or whatever does, that you needed additional headcount there to actually make changes that were taking place. And I do see that we did hire people. I don't know exactly what they're being paid, but when I go through that, I'm looking at that we hired or we increased, these three groups by 400,000, let's say. So I'm wondering, what are we doing with the other 800,000? That's because I don't have a head count, which I've asked for each department. So I don't know what all the money's going for. You know what I mean?
Mr. Brusher, I actually did provide that to you, the list with the head count, minus the police and fire. That was one of the sheets that I provided to you, probably.
Yes, and once you gave it to me, since it was incomplete and it didn't have the police and fire, I wasn't going to spend my time looking at it because it wasn't accurate. It didn't show me the positions that had vacancies. And that's what I specifically asked for. And I gave you a copy of the document that I have, which showed, so like, I'll use police as an example. There's 180 police officers, and it would list every person in that department with their salary, and then it would have a row of the vacancies. So we knew what that was, and that was by every department. And that's not what I got from you. What I got was a payroll report, which did not show any of the vacancies, which made it a useless document to work on a budget. But this is where I'm going. So we increased these departments, the mayor's department, the administration, and the council by 1.3 million. And I do know that we hired 3 employees, and I think we have another employee that's still here. So I'm going to say that that's 4, right? And if they're $100,000 positions, that's 400,000. I'm just wondering, are you hiring additional people, or what are we doing with this money in these departments that it's increased that much?
So we did increase the staff and administration, and the reason why we did that was because we are taking on a lot more this year, and everyone in administration is full-time. The salaries were listed, it's in the salaries report that Sonia provided you.
Well, this is, all right, I'll try and make this one a little simpler. We'll go to this. So I do okay, I get the mayor's salary, right? I assume this is a projection of a raise. I get that. We have other expenses in the mayor's office where we had $2,400. I'm looking at sheet 12, and we increased it to $42,000. Is that an extra body?
Oh, okay, so We also, some of the things that we also do through administration are fund other events. I'll give you one clear-cut example. We had the women's event that was primarily hosted by Council Vice President Joyce Freeman and attended by everyone on the council as well as Margot Harris, Councilwoman Margot Harris. So we have various things that we fund through that, through administration. It's not just salaries and wages.
Okay, then, let's go down. Council, I get it, right? Probably a raise in there or something. I don't think we're hiring extra council people. Administration, salaries and wages, right? So I do know that we have a few extra people, but we're increasing it some $550,000. And I don't think those couple people add up to that dollar amount. So do you have more people that you anticipate hiring to get to this number?
Administration also includes certain members from Edison Media and purchasing. No.
Well, there's purchasing is another line item. I have
Yeah,
that.
there are other individuals, not just, oh yeah, IT. There are other individuals, not just in, sorry, purchasing is separate. Yeah, if you look at the line item itself, you'll see that administration is not just the few people that work in my office. There's also other employees in town hall that are also funded through administration.
I understand that, and the administration's cost was $629,000 last year.
Yes.
This year, it's $1,183,000. So it's an increase of $550,000.
Correct.
And I haven't seen that head count to justify the $554,000. That's the question.
The head count has increased.
For $554,000.
Not to that exact amount, but it is increased. We have more personnel in this administration
Yes,
than we have in previous administration.
right. But are you hiring more? That's my question.
No,
No.
we are not hiring any more individuals in administration for this year.
All right, Sonia, do you think there's any way possible for me to get this document that I've been asking for months, right? That just shows me this so that I could see whether there is head count or there's not, that's all.
Sure, and I've responded to you, I believe, a couple of days ago via email. We are working on a control sheet. The sheet you're referring to in the copies that you dropped off in my office,
Yes.
that's a working document. That document is not something that we just give out. So I'm not sure exactly where that document was given to you, or maybe in the past administration, but that is a document that constantly changes. With our new system, our new payroll system, Unicorn, we're working on a control sheet, and that in itself will show you all of the headcount, including salaries and vacancies. So as soon as we get that done, we will be gladly to provide that to everybody at this dais.
Now, question, Ken, you've been working on Unicorn now for quite some time. When do you believe that I can get this document that I've been asking for months?
The position control document that Sonia is referring to is in process. That was one of the last elements that was added to the Unicorn system. The Unicorn system, just so you understand, is a custom-built system, and it's been built in layers, and this is one of the final layers to be built. So that's, I think that
We can
personnel have
provide
done
you
it.
with I mean, I've been on the emails as well. I've seen the emails. We've provided you with all the vacancies and what vacancies there are. But keep in mind that there's also working documents. And there's also documents that you have through the budget as well.
I know, but what I'm saying is I cannot substantiate. There is nobody on this council that can substantiate it, unless, if there's anybody on the dais here that can explain to me where in the administration we're spending the $554,000 additional dollars in headcount, I'd probably be okay. But I can't find it. Like, I know kind of who we hired, right? Because I've been up to the office and I see people. but I just can't get to that number. And that's part of this reason why I keep on asking for this document, which is a working document, I understand. You have it, you actually get to work with it. I'm up here trying to go through the budget and use it to work with it, but I can't get it. You know what I mean? But Ken tells me, or Sonia then says, you have a document, and Ken acknowledges that you are going to make this document. But I asked if I could get it, and no one told me when I could get it. That's the question.
You've received everything that we have. We can sit down and explain it to you in more detail, but you have received a document that shows very clearly we have increased personnel and what their salaries are.
Okay, I'll tell you what. If Sonia can make time for me tomorrow to show me the head count for administration from previously and the new head count, right, and that it all adds up, I'll be good with that one. I'll go on to the next question. Okay. I noticed over here we had the COVID money that we got, and we're spending 5.3 million of that for this year, correct?
That's correct.
Now, we're not spending it on the latchkey program, interest for investments, municipal courts, or anything. We're placing it all within the police department, correct?
No, so I appreciate this question, and it's a technical reason. The funds that we received, the 15.6 million that we received, when we went and spoke to DCA, they had actually informed us that we had to draw it back to the police department. That's just the way that, Ken, you could probably explain it more in detail, but that's the reason, that's a specific way we had to do it based off of being able to use those funds.
Councilman, as the mayor mentioned during the budget presentation, we're using the ARPA funds again in 2022, as we did in 2021, for revenue loss. And in the 21 budget, it just showed up as revenue loss as a revenue. The state, because of revised US Treasury guidelines, came out and said, you could do that, but you have to attribute it to a budget line item. So the easiest thing to do was just use it in the police department. So if you combine the two, the amount of the appropriation for police is the same. It's just an attribution. For some reason, US Treasury.
Could you carry your
and state
conversation
requires-
outside, please?
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, so this is just, it has no bearing.
It has no bearing
You're
at
just
all.
putting it in the time slot somewhere.
Yep,
and
correct.
that's it. Okay. Let's see. What's total raise in the budget? I see that we're increasing like our engineering and our zoning by quite a bit of money. Looks like by a couple $100,000 for each of them.
Which line item are you referring to?
This would be, you can look at 15C. Division of Engineering is one of them. We went from 500,000 to 674,000. And then zoning, we went from 117,000 to 312,000. So again, this goes back to that whole head count thing, where is that what we're doing? We're going to increase head count, or what is the rationale for raising those departments by a couple $100,000?
So I appreciate this question. Again, the reality is that our engineering and zoning department are severely understaffed compared to other municipalities. There's no question about it. You go there right now and you'll notice that that department is lacking in staff, and we need to increase our staff simply because the volume of work that comes to this department. So that is a reason why we needed to increase that.
Okay, and maybe Sonia, you could show me that one? too? Or at least what we're planning on, you know, what you're planning on hiring.
One of the plans right off the bat is to have an additional staff engineer. If you go on our website right now, you'll see there are a number of engineering positions that are open. This is going to help streamline a lot of the process. And we also have these funds that we need to make use of, these grants that we're getting a lot to fund these projects. And in order to adequately do it, it's going to come out of a portion of engineering expenses, and we can't delay it. So that's the reason why our engineer expenses have gone up.
Yeah, and then zoning? That
Same
was you?
thing. Same exact thing.
same
They go
group of
hand in
people.
hand, that and code enforcement, code officials as well.
Okay. Then I have 15A. All right, 15A. I think this goes to our fire. Reserved. Right, okay, our division of fire. I see we had, they had like $500,000 that they had in unspent in salaries and wages last year. And now we're reducing them a portion of that, that's correct? But it's to fully, the department will be fully funded, even though we're reducing that number, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Building and ground software, no. 106. Okay. These other sheets, I just had a question. We're spending money on uniforms. I see we have uniforms for firefighter allowance. That is considerably higher, I guess, than previous years. And I was wondering, we just buy, is that for the whole department? 200 and something thousand? And that also goes to volunteers, I noticed. So I was wondering how many volunteers we have.
Yes, so it is actually in our contract with them on uniforms and how all the uniforms have to be consistent.
And in the contract, so we're paying for all the uniforms, I get that, right? It was 200 and something thousand, but we also give them an allowance, right? And what do they get the allowance for? If we're paying for the uniforms, like in these sheets here, I guess on page 105 is the uniforms and 106 is the allowance for the uniforms.
Councilman Brusher, I'd have to look at the contract exactly what the allowance states, what it's actually for. Also, with the hiring of the new firefighters, approximately 12, those are new uniforms. So that's the increase that you're probably seeing.
Well, you know what it was, let's say like in last year, we're less than last year, right? Last year we did $250,000. This year we're allocating like $191,000, so it's kind of in the range. But when you went back to like 2017, it was $100,000. But my question really was, I see in firefighter uniforms, we're paying $191,000, right? Because we're buying the uniforms. But then on the other page, we're paying $45,000 for firefighter uniform allowances. So are we giving them money to buy certain aspects of their clothes, or we buy their stuff, don't we? We should buy their stuff.
We do, but much of this is contractual. We can get specific answers for you.
Okay. Planning board, what's the increase for? Planning board professional services, I guess I was originally thinking that you were looking to get somebody like a redevelopment person. Councilman Batil, I think, brought up. But that's not part of what we're looking at, right? Like
No, we are not.
or a public advocate. That was my other choice I had. Finance full-time, council overall, right, our budget went up. Headcount for Edison TV, that went up. And BA, other contractual items. Yeah, I think it's really, that increase in between the mayor's department, the council, and the business administrators, that somehow I could see how we total up to that 1.3 million. That's.
And Sonia has sent you everything that we have in terms of what we work with and how those numbers allocate all together, but we can sit down and go over them once again.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to see where it comes from, because it doesn't show up anywhere, like on any of my sheets, how we arrived at that number.
Sure.
That's why. I'm going to say that would be it for my question.
Thank you, Councilman Brescher. Council member, I'm just poking fun at you. You've been fair. You're at 35 minutes, and we do appreciate you summing up for the anticipated public that would love to speak and keeping this meeting as productive as we can. And I think your questions are valuable to the members of the public and your council person to ask any questions you'd like. And for the members of this council, there is plenty of time to caucus. If any council member brings something you agree or disagree with, we have dates here till June 15th to adopt this budget. So that is the time to caucus with one another and make some detailed changes if you so do request. Next, Council Vice President Shipp.
Good evening. I almost went to sleep. I would like to thank everyone who put this budget together, and I would like to thank, because I noticed about the debt service, I'm really, really glad about that we won't start off that way. But, I mean, everyone asked, like, really good questions and stuff, so, you were very thorough. You worked together good as a team, and I realize now we have a full-time mayor, and, that helps us out a lot. And when people come into town and they want information, it's better that you have a full-time mayor and you have a full-time staff along with you, because I like for us to be in the 21st century, because we're a very good town. We're very progressive. I think that's really good about us, and I want us to go to the future, back and forth. Now, the little small question that I have is about the library. Is that financed through the third of the mill that we present to them? Like that 5%, 1.5 million that they're receiving from the state. So in our appropriations for them, is that included in that already?
So those are, the way that the library works is it's done from a separate library board of trustees and a separate bank account. The way that they are funded is based off of a state formula, which is 1/3 of a mill, based off of your total tax valuation, which means that as our total tax valuation goes up, the increase for the library funding will also respectively be increased. Should our tax base go down, their allocation from the municipality would also respectively go down. The funds that were allocated in the library were actually done when I was a council member. They have a reserve fund of approximately $3 million. And we had applied for a matching grant, which was one of the only matching grants from the state, brick and mortar. So we have a 50% match of the 1.5 million, making the total spend on renovations $3 million. And it is not coming from this particular, I'll clarify, it's not coming from this particular budget. However, it was funded from previous years that accrued a reserve fund in a separate library board of trustees fund.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Vice President Joe Ship. Mayor, I think you did an outstanding job with your presentation. I applaud the time you put into this. I anticipate that there'll be a short honeymoon and you're going to get right back to work.
It's not until July, but
Okay, but I think this is for the best presentation the town has had on what we're doing with our money to show the taxpayers. In this room alone, you see there are several people here who, I think for the first time I've seen an audience participate here for a reason, because there's something in it for them. Again, I say that, is there's something in it for them. As I walked around to get elected and reelected, and we all know this, sitting here on the dais, our taxpayers ask us, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? We hear this all the time. Today, you've definitely shown what's in it for the taxpayers and the residents of Edison. You've covered every box that needs to be covered, and a really spectacular job. And I'm truly happy with the administration and our professionals to put this presentation together with you. And I feel, and I've heard from a baker on Amboy Avenue, and if you take care of your neighborhood will take care of yourself. And we talked about the entryways coming through Edison, Oak Tree Road, Inman Avenue, Route 27. These thoroughfares represent Edison when you cut through here. And, you know, when you mention so many things that are unacceptable, these are things we've talked about for decades, whether it came from your ears, some council members, or in the past, you know, residents and taxpayers. It's unacceptable the way parts of 27 look. It's unacceptable the way Oak Tree looks. And I remember driving with you, and you pointed to those homes just a few months ago. And if you want to show that slide. And what I liked about the method, these homes weren't taken down by force of the township. I believe it was a phone call of participation with an investor and administration. Would you get involved? And they took them down in a week or so in the town. So I think we're heading towards some great lines of communication with the public and the properties that are abandoned, and also the fact we're getting involved in reinvesting in our infrastructure, our roads. These are the things taxpayers want to hear, and I'm truly astounded on the work you put into this in this presentation. Much different than what I've seen before. And I'm not knocking the mayors in the past. I've supported each one of them, but this was a clear picture of what's in it for me. And I look forward to hearing from the residents of Edison and what they have to say. I did have just a few questions, and I'll be fair. And a lot of mayors in the past talked about the methodology of the tax base valuation growth and the anticipated shortfall we'll have with these appeals coming in our place. What was that number that you put into the budget to anticipate for the shortfall we'll have in the following year?
our,
Or that year, the appeal will come through?
yeah, so we currently have the surplus of slightly less than $2 million. And we also have the remaining balance of the American Rescue Act funds that we also would use, and we will anticipate using that over the course of the next 2 years.
Okay. I was really happy to hear that we're getting a rec center, and I had a good part of the public that was here and still here waiting to speak. And I won't be long. I won't be 35 minutes. But, and I just kid with my council colleague, we're on the phone for hours during the week talking about how to improve the township of Edison. But a rec center, amazing. And I did also hear you talk about cheer and the importance of cheer, which there's a huge audience for, and there's a huge audience that participates, no different than every sport our parents are involved in, who sacrifice every part of their freedom, become an ATM, a delivery service, a driving service, a washing service for all the different needs of our children. as parents, for the sacrifice we do. And I know you recognize cheer as a sport.
I sure do.
I'm glad to hear that.
I can't cheer, but
Okay,
I
I was waiting to hear
recognize
that. And it's definitely getting its national attention, and I really appreciate everything going on. I'm happy to see several sports we've played in this rec center. And when we discussed this before, and I heard the input from other people who are here today, is that this rec center is going to cover a lot of sports in one, which we haven't had before. So, in all, extremely pleased to see the benefits of what the taxpayers are getting and the residents of Edison. Truly happy to see you've covered every member of the public and their needs. And also, what's most important is keeping our public safety in order and keeping this town safe. And it's been one of the safest places and will continue to be that. And this is really something else here. And this all happened in your first 5 months in office. So congratulations to you. And I will, I'm going to move forward here. And before I open it up to the public, I just want to make a quick brief statement for those who are here who plan to speak or in the future who speak at other meetings. This council will not tolerate any character assassination of anyone here in this room, whether you decide to speak ill of a council member, a member of the public, an employee, anyone here. Okay, I'll look this way. First of all, you're out of order, Christo, and I'll give you one shot today. I've been fair with you every time, and I am not looking at you. I'm here to protect everyone here. Officer, I'm putting him on second warning right now. If he speaks again while I'm speaking, he's to be removed. I just ask that everyone is protected here. Each person who speaks to the microphone, and I mean everyone in here, gets a chance to be heard, and each one gets valued in what they bring to the township here, because they are taxpayers as well. But I just appreciate, and it's just really important how we respectfully conduct this meeting here, and that those who are watching this meeting get a chance to anticipate this moving forward. Because people are waiting, they're looking at us every day, waiting for this meeting to either end or get to a point of what they want to see resolved. So it's really important that we respect one another, and I mean everyone, and I mean it the members of the public, those who speak here, and our council and employees. So I thank you for that and in respecting those rules. This particular oral petition remarks will only be on the budget. If you have nothing to discuss that doesn't point to the budget, I'll ask for the next speaker in respect of those waiting to speak. So I'll open up the public portion right now. And do we have anybody that'd like to speak? Mr. Diamond?
Bruce Diamond, Calvert Avenue, Edison. Great presentation. Hopefully it's gonna be a wonderful time and things get better in Edison. As to some of the entry-level salaries that the councilman was referring to, I would just like to point out that in the private sector, you don't see pensions anymore. You don't see 25 days off every single holiday, and that's worth something. So when you're looking at the basic pay, there's certainly a hidden paycheck of fantastic health insurance, I presume, a pension program that needs to be taken into consideration, Councilman. Do you agree with that?
I don't agree with that, because if you look at outside board, there is a FedEx who is paying $18, there's Amazon who is paying probably with $20. And if you're talking about the vacation, yes, every private entity does, full-time employee does provide the vacation.
And most
10 days,
I'm sorry.
15 days, and they do, most of them in a competitive industry, they also pay your 401k matching, 4%.
You're talking about full-time positions.
Correct.
I agree with that. Those positions at FedEx and Walmart are just under the threshold to get health insurance. We've been
Mr.
reading
Patil,
about this.
you
We can debate, but I can tell you one thing.
Mr. Patil, we're going to answer these questions after the public portion.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Diamond, you can direct your questions to, and they'll all be answered right after the public
Thank you.
portion. And to respect all council members and members of the public, I ask as a courtesy to this council that we answer all the questions at the end of the close of the public portion, just so we don't have this back and forth. And I could appreciate that, please. And again, in respect for the time for those listening, this definitely moves the time forward. Our next speaker, anybody else that'd like to speak? Mr. Christo.
Very disgusting, Councilman Coyle, how you started right before the public comments. I'm here to speak for a few things. I don't even care about Sam Joshi because it's nonsense. He's not even going to respond anyway. But the way you started off discriminating on certain members of the public here, I'd like it to be known, Lozman versus Riviera Beach Supreme Court ruling says once my time starts, I cannot be dragged out during my 6 minutes. The police officers agreed to that. So that means everything you said, Councilman Coyle, is null and void, including character assassinations of certain, or what you deem to be a character assassination. I came here to say no more funds for the community-orienting policing unit. It's a disgrace. They failed. They're negligent in their duties, and I want them to have less funds. There's no Civil Rights Commission. Everybody except Edison has this, and maybe if we had a Civil Rights Commission, Councilman Coyle, you wouldn't be discriminating on members of the public. You wouldn't be antagonizing on members of the public that come here.
1 second, let me just correct you, Christo.
My time to
no,
speak.
your
I don't
time
care
is-
what
your
you
time
have
is
to
hold.
say.
No, listen, you're going to
Is my
stop
ti-
speaking.
Are you stopping my time?
You're going to stop your time. Christo, you're going to act professional like you have in the past with me.
I
We've had-
always act
we've had a
professional.
fair
Are you saying I'm not
relationship.
acting professional now?
We've had a fair
Is
relationship.
he saying I'm not acting professional now?
Mr. Christo, this
Time
is
stopped,
the
right?
last time. Christo, I've been fair with speaking to you.
You discriminate. You stop me every meeting and force me and tell me.
Officer,
Can you turn my time on? Turn
officer.
it on and don't stop it for him because
Listen.
Lozman versus Riviera Beach Supreme Court ruling says during my
Christo,
time
we either-
he can't interrupt me, he can't throw me out.
Christo,
and-
we're either going to have this back and forth, and you're going
I'm
to
not
have a
trying to have
productive.
a back and forth. I came
You
here
need
to
to
speak
you
during
need
my
to
time.
respect me and stop speaking.
Why
right
is
now.
there no lawyer here? Where's
Officer,
the
please
lawyer?
have him removed.
Is my time still on?
Christo, if you're not going to respect
you.
the rules of this council, I'm going to have
Why
you
is the
removed.
lawyer not here? I want to know why at the last meeting June Brescher was harassed by members of this council.
Christo,
I
this
wanna
does not
know-
pertain to the
I
budget.
want to know who purchased Silver Lake. Does Mayor Sam Joshi have
Your
an
questions
answer?
will be answered
Who
after the-
purchased Silver Lake?
Mr.
Did that
Christo,
did the purchase come from BCB Bank?
your questions are going to be answered after
wanna
the
know.
public portion.
Why is the lawyer not here? Is it because there's certain conflicts of interest, such as the purchase of Silver Lake?
Your
Maybe
question will be
maybe
answered.
connections to BCB Bank. Could that be the reason? How much time do I have left, Marlena? About 2 minutes. 2 minutes? I didn't come here to speak for him. This is supposed to be a special sewer meeting, as it was said to the public. I checked 48 hours ago. I checked 24 hours ago. I came here because it's a special sewer meeting. And this event was updated May 19, 2022 at 10:52 in the morning for Mayor Sam Joshi to sneak in here because he doesn't want to face his critics, he doesn't want to face members of the public, and because he's a coward. He's a coward. He doesn't want to be criticized.
Christo, please
There's
stay to
no
the budget, please.
accountability. There's no transparency
budget.
here in Edison.
Your
And how
information
much
is
time do I
incorrect.
have
Christo,
left?
your
Can
information
you
is
please stop
incorrect.
interrupting me? You're out of order. You are out of order,
You're going to tell me
Councilman.
out of order.
You are out of order.
Officer,
How much time do I have
please
left?
remove him from
How
this
much time-
this dais. I'm not putting up with this anymore.
How much time do I have
I've given
left?
him time.
You're going to put up with what the law
You're gonna-
law
you're gonna
allows.
go.
You're a scumbag,
You're gonna go right now.
Councilman Coyle.
Yeah, I've
You're
been
gonna
fair
put
to
up
you.
with what
You're
the
not.
law
You're
allows.
disrespecting this council,
You're gonna put
and
up
you're
with
not
what
being
the law
productive to
allows.
the members listening
It's
to
been
this.
over 100 days in office. He still has no master plan. He has broke his campaign promise.
Council,
He has broke
let's
his
call for
campaign
recess,
promise.
please. Motion for recess.
Motion to recess. How much time do I have left? Can I know how much time I have left?
Make
so
a
I know what
motion
to
that we
speak for?
recess for 5
Have a
minutes.
second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
You can't do this during my
Nays.
time. That's illegal. That's illegal. They're breaking the law. This is a violation of my rights, and you're breaking the law. And I'm sitting down during your recess, so you can't say I'm disrupting. Absolutely disgusting, the violation of civil rights going on in this room right now. Absolutely disgusting. I came here for a sewer meeting. The event was an updated 1052, Cheryl. Don't look surprised. Don't look surprised. This wasn't supposed to be a meeting.
No, it's a public meeting, but it's for the budget, the sewer, and the water.
Oh, but it's for the budgets. It's not
Yeah, for the budget, for the sewer and the water.
This is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
A motion to reconvene this meeting.
Motion to reconvene?
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any nays? Motion carries to continue the meeting. Chris, so we're going to add 1 minute to your, you have 2.5 minutes left. And please, to the budget only. Questions for the budget only.
For public comments.
Questions on the
I'm-
budget
I
only.
came here for public comments. It's a public meeting as per Open Public Meetings Act and Sunshine Law. If you don't allow me my public meeting,
Continue, two and a half-
public
two and a
comments,
half
this whole
minutes.
meeting's gonna get striked from the record.
2.5 minutes.
You can't just-
Chris Costello.
This is absolutely disgusting. I'm gonna speak for public comments. My time has started. We have no Civil Rights Commission. Edison needs one. As you can see, it's absolutely disgusting how we treat the members of the public here at this meeting. And I want to know, why weren't we told that Sam Joshi was going, where, Sam? You're not here when the public talks? Isn't this his meeting? I might have questions for Sam, and he just walks out.
Went to the bathroom.
Went to the bathroom.
Went to the bathroom.
He went to the bathroom. Okay. Absolutely disgusting how you treat me, how you discriminate against me. Councilman Brescher, there's other times before this meeting starts, I get pulled into his office, threatened, intimidated, not to follow the law, or coerced. He tries to pretend like he's somebody's friend. He'll try to pretend he's your friend, and absolutely disgusting what you do, Councilman Quayle. No more. We're not going to have this.
And you're going to
God-
be removed, so
Thank
continue.
God we have good police officers that follow the law, because you tried to violate my civil rights. They refused to follow your orders. Lozman versus Riviera Beach Supreme Court ruling says, when my clock starts, I cannot, if I'm not acting disorderly, I can't be removed. You can't mute me, you can't interrupt me. So what's going on? Why is the lawyer not here? Is the lawyer not here because he works for Coughlin's
I
office?
didn't ask him to be here, Ms.
Is the
Christo.
lawyer not here because he works for Coughlin's office? And there could be a conflict of interest where, did BCB Bank purchase a Silver Lake property? Who purchased a Silver Lake property? Does anybody have an
Provide you
answer
that
for that?
answer, we'll provide you that answer, continue your questions.
You'll provide me, you won't provide nothing, you never provide nothing. I've been going, I get told by his assistant to come to the mayor's office to make an appointment. I come, make an appointment, and instead of telling me, they'll tell me, sit down, Mary will be with you in a moment. And then they just call the police on me. That's absolutely disgusting. I am getting the police body-worn camera and the police report of the mayor's assistant threatening Indian residents in this town, threatening them for wanting to play cricket or for wanting to speak, do their constitutionally protected activity and say, hey, we don't want to pay a cricket fee. At the end of the day, you guys are going to pass whatever laws you want. Why does his administration come to this meeting and harass members of the public, threaten them, intimidate them, use scumbags like Coyle to
Council
intimidate
President,
us?
Council President, if I may.
Go ahead.
While I
It's my
respect
time to
your
speak. You
form-
may not. You may not. It's my
Listen,
time to speak.
Christo,
I have the floor.
Christo, please stop his time. Please stop Christo's time, please. Mayor, you can speak. We're just stopping your time. We're pausing your time, Christo.
Pause my time.
Okay, go ahead. Mayor, you need to speak.
You didn't pause my time.
Officers,
pause
just
my
wait
time.
for 1 minute, please. He's got 30 seconds left. Mayor, do you want to say something?
Edison versus Riviera Beach.
While I respect the four walls of this chamber as you are the council president, I think it's important to maintain decorum in these four walls and make sure that this is a place of public policy and constructive criticism, and I have no problem being subjected to that. However, given the fact that you also want to maintain decorum, I have no problem as Director of Public Safety having him removed.
I'm going to give him his 30 seconds left, and
He has no problem violating people's civil rights, violating
Mayor.
the Constitution,
I'm gonna hold that
violating
thought.
the Open Public Meetings Act. He just admitted that right now. He just admitted he's willing to break federal law, conspiracy to deprive a member of the
Time's up.
public of their constitutional
Chris, your
protected
time is up.
activity.
Thank you for your comments. And next speaker? Any other members of the public? Yes.
Dan Boslett, 5B Center Street. I've been listening to all that. I think you councilmen and women and the mayor have treated me very well. So just so you know that. I'm here to speak on the cheerleaders facility. I think it's a long time coming. It's fantastic what we're doing for the rec. I grew up in this rec program since I was a little kid. I would love to see, now, my youngest is gonna be in 8th grade next year. He's gonna miss all these great things, but it puts a big smile on my face seeing that things are gonna be done for the future youth of this town. Maybe I'll see it as a grandparent, I don't know. I'll be walking out the door. I'm gonna still stick around. I'll be part of the Jets organization, but none of my kids will see the use of these, but I'll see other kids use them and really enjoy them. One thing that the mayor said while I was sitting there is that a town this big, with this much resources, why have we been left behind with the rec programs? My kids have been asking me that for years. We go to other places and, Dad, why don't we have that? Dad, why don't? We've asked for it, we didn't get it. Fortunately now, with a mayor of his statute, council members that care about the community and care about the youth of the town, it looks like we're gonna finally get some upgrades that are direly needed. So I wanna thank the mayor, and I wanna thank the council for your consideration. We all appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, gentleman back.
Good evening, y'all. Y'all know who it is. Ben's, Edison, New Jersey. Man, I'm happy, man. I am so happy because we need Edison Jets football field by a lot. I was a football player. Oh man, I played with them 2 times, 2001, and I think 2008 or 9. I was number 17 for the Edison Jets. They call me Ihorn Finkel because the lace is out, Dan. That type of movie. But I really needed this. We all needed this. This budget should be approved ASAP. This football field, I was just there yesterday, literally going back in my memories, like, damn, I used to kick field goals like it was nothing. Almost broke the lady's house right behind. I just want to say congratulations to everybody, and we need this. And Mr. Joshi, you're the man for the job, and you really are. And I'm glad that I heard you were at the White House yesterday. How was it?
It was fun.
It was fun.
It was fun.
Including your marriages too is gonna be fun too. So
It's on
congratulations as well. But yeah, guys, thank you so much, Mayor and everybody. This is Edison, New Jersey. We are the light of Edison, New Jersey, like I said over and over and over again. And the White House is listening, by the way. So hello, Edison. Hello, White House. But yeah, congratulations to everybody. And this is Edison, New Jersey. We're gonna keep doing what we have to do so we can make Edison the best place in the state of New Jersey. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Any other first-time speakers? Mr. Tar?
Unfortunately, I was at a Kiwanis meeting this evening. I didn't get the opportunity to see the budget presentation. But I'm pretty familiar with the development of budgets. And I'd like to commend the mayor for the budget that he's brought, particularly considering the problems we've had to face this year in developing budgets. We talk about inflation, we talk about supply chains, we talk about pandemic, but there are also fixed costs involved in the development of a budget, which many people don't take into account. We have any number of public employees who work at Edison who bargain contracts, and those contracts provide for salary increases. And some individuals don't understand that that has to be factored into the development of a budget. So when people are calling for decreases in budgets and they're calling for tax cuts, sometimes they don't understand all the factors that go into the development of a budget. Another thing that residents in New Jersey fail to understand is that we are kind of a unique state. We have approximately 630 or 640 communities in a state this size. And we insist upon having individual public services for each of those communities, which means you're doubling or tripling the cost it takes to make up a budget. So we have 620 or 630 school districts, fire departments, police departments, public service departments. So when we complain in New Jersey about the tax costs, we need to keep that factor in mind. We duplicate services, and that's what it costs. This is what it costs to run Edison. The current inflation rate's over 8%, but the budgets come in much, much lower than that. We're falling within the cap, and the cap is a low 2%. So I don't see how anybody who looks at this budget and looks at it carefully can be speaking against it, particularly with all the new things we're planning to bring to the community. So I wholly support Mayor Josie's budget, and I hope the City Council will also.
Thank you, Mr. Tar. Next speaker, please come up.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Woomer. I'm 48 Bradley Drive. So we moved here to Edison in 2003, and my husband and I bought our home, and we weren't sure that Edison was going to be like our forever place. But in 2004, we signed our son up for Edison Jets, our 5-year-old son at the time. And a couple of kids later, we're still there. And now my husband and I are very active in the Edison Jets e-board. We put a lot of work into the field. We put a lot of work into making sure these kids are successful. And our girls have gone to nationals time and time again despite the fact that we have very poor conditions. They don't have any place to practice past August, especially after Stoughton Community Center had closed. They used to use that space to practice. Now they're out in parking lots and in the grass, and they go into elementary schools with very short ceilings for them to cheer. And we try to make it affordable for them. We definitely try to make the price as low as possible. And what we've seen is a lot of girls leave the program because of that. So this facility, this is going to bring so much to the girls in this community, and I think our numbers are going to flourish. Because what we see happening is we have tons of girls come when they're 5 and they're 6 years old. And by the time they get to 7 and 8 and they love cheering and they have no place to do it in Edison, they go to other places and their parents spend thousands and thousands of dollars at these places with these huge facilities because we can't, we don't have any place for them to do that. So I'm so excited that this is going to be a project for them and it's going to help our community. And I just wanted to say that the other thing is too, that, you know, it's equal opportunity. If the boys are getting the turf field, then the girls should absolutely get the facility. And, you know, and give them a place even to, you know, on game day, they're changing in the bathroom where we have 3 dirty stalls. And, you know, it's a small building that gets graffiti written all over it all the time. And, you know, we make do. And we take that kitchen and we take all that money that we buy and from that kitchen and we give it back to the kids and do as much as we possibly can. But this is going to elevate us to another level, and that's going to make this 62-year, you know, league that we're running, that we're continuing to go forward with, just continue on for 62 more years plus, right? Like this is going to be big, and I think they're going to have other cheerleading and Central Jersey are going to be begging to use this facility. So I just hope this gets approved and everything goes forward and we can really do this for our girls next season. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Council
Hearing
President,
none.
could I make a quick comment?
Close the public portion, do you mind?
Sure, no problem. I'll do it afterwards.
I don't have to, I can keep it open. if
That's
you'd like.
fine. That's fine.
A motion to close the public portion?
Motion to close the public portion?
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Motion carries to close the public portion. Mayor, please.
I just want to say thank you to the residents that came out, as well as the council members, especially this last speaker. Ms. Woomer was one of the first individuals when we had our roundtable meeting. This administration, we made it a conscious effort to reach out to as many organizations as we possibly could have. We sent out letters, we sent out emails, we sent out texts, phone calls, but right off the bat, I distinctly remember her being at the end of the table, not being shy at all to say what she thought were the needs. And we went out to as many people that were open-minded and receptive to hearing us out and our timeline. It completely broke my heart seeing what the facility looked like, especially for cheerleading. Like I said, they had nothing. As of now, they really don't have any sort of home. But this recreational facility, when it's built, is because this group back here, they were very open-minded. We all sat down together, and this is community making progress together.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? This meeting is adjourned.